Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Legacy of Black Philanthropy, a panel conversation. My name is Ariel Ozuzu, and I am the Director of Grants and Initiatives at the Community Foundation of Greater Memphis. Thank you all for joining us to celebrate Black philanthropy and its power to make Memphis a better place for all. By now, we're all accustomed to the virtual world, but I have just a few notes. So closed captioning is available for anybody who needs to use it. It can be enabled by clicking the CC icon at the bottom of your screen. We will also have time for Q&A at the end of the panel, so feel free to submit any questions throughout the conversation. That feature can also be found at the bottom of your screen. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded and streamed live on the Community Foundation of Greater Memphis's Facebook page. It will be available there and on our YouTube channel following the event. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Community Foundation of Greater Memphis, our mission is to strengthen our community through philanthropy. We work with the donors, nonprofits, and professional advisors to make a positive impact in our region. In our day-to-day, that looks like managing charitable funds, a giving circle, competitive grant processes, several scholarships, and a community information platform. This is all in efforts to connect capital with solutions to make our community thrive. While we have over a 50-year plus history, many of you may have grown to know us for some of our most recent initiatives, like the Lemoyne Owen College Endowment and the Mid-South COVID-19 Regional Response Fund we launched in response to the coronavirus pandemic. We've been on a journey of reshaping our role to become more involved in the needs of the community. Historically, we haven't engaged in conversations like the one we will on this evening. Like the rest of the world, for the past 18 to 24 months, the Community Foundation has been reflecting and making the necessary changes to truly embody our vision, which is to create a just and equitable region where all individuals and groups receive the resources and opportunities they need to reach their full potential, and build a community where everyone is welcome, valued, resourced, and informed. One where people can easily access opportunities to contribute and to thrive. We are evolving and making strides to accomplish those things every single day. And as a part of the evolution, we wanted to have this conversation to acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of Black people that fuel our collective efforts to better our community. Too often, conversations about the Black community focuses on our deficits and not our assets. We work continuously to change that narrative, and there's still more work to be done, especially when we talk about philanthropy. When we talk about philanthropy, there's a certain type of person and a certain amount of money that most people have in mind, and Black people are often left out of these conversations. There are also myths that Black donors are new and emerging, or Black people only give in a certain kind of way, or that we don't give at all. We even have doubts in ourselves sometimes, like I only give at this level, so I don't see myself as a philanthropist, or I'm in need, so how can what I do be considered meeting the needs of others? But Black people have a long history of just that, meeting needs for one another. We have a history of pulling together resources for the good of our community. From Robert Church, Ida B. Wells, and Benjamin Hooks, to the philanthropic Black women of Memphis, and everyone before, after, and in between, there are countless Black people who have given their time, talent, and treasure to achieve transformational change in Memphis. Black people continue to demonstrate a range of generosity, from tithing in churches to supporting neighborhoods and schools, joining fraternities, sororities, and other civic clubs, giving to large institutions. And while many of those gifts are undocumented, from what has been recorded, we know that nationally, Black Americans give a larger share of their wealth to charity than any other racial group in America. And this totals about $11 billion annually. On top of that formal generosity is a tremendous tradition of informal giving and community investing that truly defines giving back. It's important to value all of these gifts and recognize them as philanthropic endeavors. We're excited to be with you all this evening to do just that as we celebrate Black Philanthropy Month. For the past 10 years, Black Philanthropy Month has been observed every August as a global celebration and concerted campaign to elevate giving by people of African descent. This is the first year that the Community Foundation of Greater Memphis is joining in the celebration. And we're honored to host this engaging conversation to amplify Black giving so that it continues to grow and the legacy goes on. When we were thinking of a moderator for this conversation, Linda McNeil was one of the first people to come to mind. As a founding member of Give 365, the Community Foundation's $1 a Day Giving Circle, and a member of our Strengthening Nonprofits Committee, she was already in our orbit. But we also know about her service to the nonprofits and the entire community of Memphis. She is a lifelong Memphian and graduate of Lemoyne Owen College who has committed herself to working to the betterment of her hometown. Over her 25+ year nonprofit career, Linda has been the chief fundraising officer for the city's most notable organizations, served on several nonprofit boards, and made many positive contributions and a real impact. And we're thrilled to have her moderate the discussion this evening. So let's get started. Linda.
Thank you, Ariel. I am so excited about this conversation that we're having today. And I'm even more excited about this distinguished panel that you all are going to be hearing about around this conversation about Black philanthropy. So let's, without further ado, get started so we can have time for questions at the end. I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. And in doing so, will you also share with us where you learned about giving back to the community? So we'll start with Ruby, then move to Brooke, and then Marcellus, and we'll close out introductions with you, Pastor Turner. Okay, Ruby?
Thank you. Thank you, Linda, and thank you to the Community Foundation for this opportunity. I am very, very honored to be a part of this panel. So I am Ruby Bright. I am the president and CEO of the Women's Foundation for Greater Memphis. And, you know, I'm a past president of the Links Incorporated Shelby County chapter. I am a board member of Think Tennessee, past board chair of the Women's Funding Network, and a board member of Memphis Challenge. And I also, because of this occasion, I want to say that I am so honored to have had the opportunity to co-chair the Ida B. Wells Memphis Memorial Committee, honoring her most recently. And I learned about giving back from my mom and from my father, you know, from my family. Farrell and Annie Salisbury really modeled the importance of bringing our offerings to the church. I mean, that's where our base is, and then also giving back to the community. I think the introduction to community service started in my career with junior achievement and then learning about philanthropy with the Women's Foundation.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Brooke Dishmon. I am a general dentist here in Memphis, Tennessee, the place I've been happy to call home for the past 19, nearly 20 years. It sounds crazy when I say that because that's half my life. I am a proud member, Ruby's my Link sister, of the Links Incorporated Shelby County, Tennessee chapter. And Links Incorporated is one of the oldest and largest volunteer service organizations with over 16,000 Black professional women, and we are all about uplifting our people. I grew up in Miami in a very close-knit West Indian family, and my mom's a nurse, probably the most caring and selfless woman you'd ever meet. She was a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Nursing Association, and they would often host fundraisers to help with medical procedures that families may need in Trinidad or Caribbean families may need in South Florida or wherever in the States. So I would say that my mother is the one who first introduced me to giving back. Also, my grandparents, who have a long, long history of serving the West Indian community in South Florida. And I'm thrilled to be here and honored to be on this panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I am Marcellus Harper. I am the founding executive director of Collage Collective. For those who are unfamiliar with collage, we are a professional ballet company and conservatory right here in Memphis, Tennessee. It seems like there's a theme tonight that, the idea of giving back starts in the home, and my story is no different. My mom was one of 17 kids, and so we come from a very working class family, but watching my mom, give to so many cousins and relatives who were in need, I think really instilled that spirit of giving back to your community, whatever that looks like. And I think it was really crystallized for me when I moved to Memphis and building collage literally from the ground up in this community, and seeing how important philanthropy and people giving to a dream or to a vision, how important those people are to making that vision and dream a reality, really crystallized for me the importance of community giving back, or giving back to the community.
Well, good late afternoon to everyone. I'm Jason Lawrence Turner. I'm the senior pastor of Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church, Disciples of Christ here in Memphis, Tennessee. We pre-pandemic were one church in 2 locations. Now you can access us just about anywhere you are in the country and the world. I serve on a number of boards throughout the community and the nation, from civil rights organizations such as the National Action Network under the leadership of Reverend Al Sharpton, to Church Health here in Memphis, Tennessee, part of fraternal organizations as well. But I will hurry to share my introduction to Black philanthropy, and it comes in 2 ways. One is by seeing my own father and how people in the community would find themselves on hard times, who might need a car repaired, or just a little bit of something to make ends meet, or to pay a bill, and he would take out of his own pocket in order to meet that need. But as well, of course, I would say the church, but in particular way, I can remember about 30 years ago, a couple in our church, the church I grew up in, gave $14,000 to begin a college scholarship fund at the church, and to see members of our congregation come alongside that effort. And up to the present day, students who go after college are not just gifted an award for 1 year, but throughout their matriculation till they graduate, each semester, they receive support from that congregation. And so I'm sure I'll share more about the church's involvement in Black philanthropy, but that's where it all started out for me.
Thank you all. And you all shared various ways of how you got engaged with Black philanthropy and giving back to the community. So, and we all understand that sometimes the way we give is not the traditional way of giving cash. So let's talk about that, Pastor Turner, and talk about time, talent, and testimony. Outside of financial giving, there are many ways that people give back, and these gifts can be just as important as actual dollars in some cases. What has philanthropy looked like historically in the Black community, and what does it look like today?
Yeah, so I think if you look at the history of Black philanthropy, some trace it all the way back to the shores of West Africa. But it certainly has gone on to periods such as the abolitionist work up through times in which segments of our community after the abolition of slavery began to put monies together to start HBCUs. And so you can't speak of any of those seasons in the life of African Americans without finding the African American church is the thread that's woven throughout. And I think that continues to this day. And what you will see, I think, in African American churches, whether large and well-resourced or small, in addition to dollars, you have seen the offering up of talents and of time that have helped to make an impact in the lives of our communities. And so you'll see African American families, at the same time that they're rearing their own children, you'll see those parents volunteer to mentor children in the community or to tutor children in a particular subject. You'll see in our church, amount of outreach is how we feed households, but beyond the providing of financial resources to make that happen, our own members volunteer to be deliverers and drivers to make sure that food gets from the warehouse to those households that are in need. And so philanthropy is something that certainly something that can be seen, something more tangible and financial, but whenever we can offer our talents and give of our time, that is expressing one's love of humanity and the way we give of those things to make humanity better.
Thank you, Pastor Turner. Anyone else want to speak on that? Come on, okay. All right, Marcellus, you know I love collage and I love you so much. You recently completed a very successful capital campaign for a new facility. And if you all haven't seen that facility, I urge you to go and see it, where the majority of your donors were people of color. Can you share with us the significance of that fact for collage?
Absolutely. And I think we probably need to go back even before we talk about the capital campaign to how we started in Memphis. We got to Memphis in 2007, Kevin and I. We had no relationships here, no network, and our strategy right away was to knock on all of the foundation doors. And so we knocked on them, and I wrote what I thought were great proposals, and the doors weren't opening, and we weren't getting the traction that we thought we could or we should, and no one knew who we were. And so we really had to pivot our strategy to really focus on individual donors. So we were very strategic very early on about building individual donors. And the majority of those donors were African American. And so we started meeting with donors and talking about the vision. We started to have donors who had kids who would be in our program. And so over time, we just started to build this community, which was very important. And we were able to tap into that community when it came time to build this new facility. And like you said, we've had tremendous participation from the Black community in Memphis. The building itself will be named after a Black family, which is pretty historic when you think about our aspirational peers like Alvin Ailey and the Dance Theater of Harlem. I mean, those buildings are not named after Black people. So to have that type of support and to have that type of symbolism is truly, hopefully not only important, but empowering. Cultural institutions are important because they tell the stories of people. And, predominantly white institutions are supported and their communities get that. That's why you see the symphony and you see the museums, the orchestras, the ballets that are supported. And we need Black cultural institutions too, because they tell our stories. They preserve our legacies. And so what we found is that particularly when there are institutions that are culturally affirming that speak to who we are as a people, that Black people absolutely will get behind it and will support with their resources. Very early on, we had lots of board members, many who are still our board members, early donors, and I would ask them, well, why are you giving to collage? And these were donors who had historically not given to cultural institutions in the past. And one of the responses we would always get is that we had never been asked. So I think it's a combination of, knowing the power that's here, and knowing, the demographics of our city, asking, and then also having a product and having a vision that speaks to our realities, our truths, and our narratives.
Thank you. And I was going to add on to that, but you've already answered it. But if you want to add any more to it, what do you think can be learned from Black giving right now? And why should we be paying attention to Black philanthropy? You kind of hit on it and saying, people said they weren't even asked to give. And are there any other points you want to point out about that?
Well, I mean, I think that even bigger than giving. So when we got to Memphis, Kevin and I would oftentimes be in spaces and fine arts and art spaces where we would be the only Black or one of the only Black people in the room. And it was alarming to me. It was alarming to me, not just that we were in the minority in a city like Memphis, but also that it wasn't alarming to everybody else in the room. Memphis is 63% Black, it's 70% a minority. So we're not talking about, diversity as a good thing to do. We're talking about diversity as in terms of a business model, something that's smart and important, and we're talking about sustainability. So all that to say that, you know, whether it's patrons, whether it's clients, whether it's donors, engaging the African American community is critical and crucial when it comes to sustainability and survival in this city.
Thank you. And there is no magic formula. You ask, if you don't ask, there's always no, and you treat us like you treat any other donor. We're not foreign. I just wanted to point that out. All right, Ruby, I want to come to you. How has the COVID-19 health pandemic and the nation's grappling with social justice issues and efforts impacted the giving of Black communities? And how do we ensure the spotlight on Black communities that we're experiencing now continues beyond this current period?
Thank you, Linda. And I just want to take a minute to say, you know, Marcellus, I appreciate what you've shared and so much from the heart. And I think about it from the standpoint of you know, it's really about the work that you're doing that is centered in this. It's not funding a building as much as creating the opportunity for more people to be engaged and to be a part, and how you make that happen with not only the participants, but the entire family. And I just want to, you know, lift that up because it's really important to what we're talking about today. And that's really around how Black philanthropy contributes to elevating a stronger community. So, you know, being very, as we look at the pandemic, Linda, and your question, yes, it did in fact amplify, you know, the economic condition and the disparities in our community, but they were already present, you know, in low-income communities. They were present, and it's almost like the covers were pulled off, and you know, something, you know, had to be done, you know, the health issues, the racial and economic disparities in the Black community exist. They have existed for a long period of time. And actually, you know, Black philanthropy grassroots has held that up, and you know, been the foundation. And then we've had the support, you know, from others. But it starts in community. And I think that the pandemic really for me and my work with the Women's Foundation, we were focused on, you know, as you know, really place-based and focused on reducing poverty in one of the poorest zip codes in our community, 38126. So, you know, we had to assess and then hear where the needs are. We also had to ensure that community that we were there for the long haul. Being there, going to the community, you know, making sure that the essentials are there. And what I found that connects to this conversation is that establishing that COVID relief fund, that women that lived in that community came, volunteered, you know, gave a donation from their heart. Can I do something? And then got in line to get there. They waited until others were served and said, now can I get mine for my children or for my family? But that philanthropy and that impact really, you know, made a difference in terms of understanding that we have to help each other and lift each other up. And I think that if there was a story to be told relative to philanthropy and ensuring that it does keep the focus of racial and social justice in play, is the fact that the disparity is there. There's a disparity, and we're trying to address that. And my hope is that with this spotlight, that we are here for the long term. That, you know, it's amplified, and you know, that philanthropy period will remain focused, that we have to improve the economic conditions of all. And especially if we start with ensuring that we help African-American families, I mean, all people of color families, that we are helping the greater community. We are supporting and enabling and empowering, because they have to be a part of their own solutions.
Great, thank you, Ruby. Brooke, the next question is for you. And I thought this question was so fitting, because if anyone knows you, they see you out in the community with your children. So the question is, having the next generation understand the history and importance of giving purposely is very important. How are you engaging your children in the next generation to be more thoughtful about how they give to help improve outcomes for Black people and, by extension, all people?
Okay, so Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that everybody can be great because anybody can serve. And that's a sentiment that we take very seriously in our home. And it's something that we try to impart to our children, who I also refer to as my stalkers. With that being said, my kids are absolutely involved in everything that goes on in our homes. It's also, though, a privilege to be associated with organizations, and these organizations, at the cornerstone of them is service. Like most Black organizations, I would say sororities, fraternities, the Links, Jack and Jill, I can go on and on. All of these organizations, they all promote service and philanthropy. And my kids are, like I said, they're very aware of everything that goes on in the house. My husband, he was past board and president of the local chapter of American Heart Association. My kids, any meeting they can tune in on that's virtual, my kids are there and present. My kids are at the walkathon. They're aware of what's going on in the community. I mentioned Jack and Jill just now, and that's another organization of moms, of families. And we basically, want our children to be engaged. We want them to be servant leaders, excuse me. We want them to fulfill civic duties, and we want to build children who are kind and compassionate. My children have done countless service opportunities through Jack and Jill. And it's nice that they're actually doing this alongside their friends. So really, service for them is the norm, and it's something that they enjoy. My 8-year-old, I picked him up one day and I'm like, let's go shopping for Hope House. And he's thrilled to go do that. My daughter, she's amazing. She's incredible. My 15-year-old. And a few years ago, not even a few years ago, but maybe a year and a half ago, she was awarded the Carmen B. Vaughn Service Award from her school for stellar service to her school and to her classmates. And she's also very service-minded. And I would say a part of that is probably because of Jack and Jill and what she sees. Of course, I want to take credit for it, what she sees us doing in the home. And also Girl Scouts, which is something that I would encourage anyone with kids to look into. I'm just amazed. Back to Jack and Jill though, last December, she wasn't vaccinated yet, only because it wasn't available for her, but she was at Vance Community Center distributing gifts. The same gifts that she was distributing, my 7 and 8-year-old couldn't attend that event, but I took them shopping for those gifts, and they bagged the gifts and they wrote cards for the kids that we were gifting those presents to. As a dentist, I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of speaking engagements. I never miss an opportunity to discuss my career as a dentist with children. And that's from, I've done preschools to college age students. And that's something I enjoy. And my kids are usually present. And if they're not present at a health fair or a career fair, the day before, were bagging toothbrushes and helping me collect books to gift to the students. So we definitely encourage our kids to take part in what we do. And we expose them to everything that we do. Like everything we do is done as a family. It's a joint effort. Philanthropy in our family, community service, is a joint effort, and they see how important it is for us to give back. So in turn, it's important for them. And that's something that I feel really, really good and strongly about. And really, our family is no different. There are many families in the Memphis area who do the same things that we do, who are all about philanthropy and community service and helping others. All of my friends are instilling this in their children as well. And it's not just Jack and Jill families. It's all Black families. It's all of us, I think, who are on board to empower and to advocate for our people. And that's something else that I discuss with my children. I always tell them, you have to advocate for yourselves because no one else will. Advocate for yourselves and advocate for other people. And just be kind and be compassionate. I struggle with kindness at times, but I try to model, the best behavior for my children. And I want them to be lovely people. They have so much in this world to share, and I want them to be grateful and to always pay it forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Brooke. So before we open up the conversation for our participants to ask questions, I want each of you to answer this question. What kind of legacy are you looking to pass on to your family and community? And Brooke kind of touched on it a little bit in her comments. And then also, what is the one thing that anyone can do to be a philanthropist in the community? It can be pertaining to your organization or something else that you feel is a simple or easy thing for anyone to do. Let's start with Ruby and then Pastor Turner, Marcellus, and we'll end with you, Brooke.
Thank you. So, the legacy that I want to leave is one that I live every day. And that is, being of service to community. And when I think about, philanthropy and our accountability, I think that I just want to make sure that we hold ourselves and others accountable for the part that the role that they play and should play. And, lifted up in service, as Brooke so eloquently stated, around involving family. So I think, the legacy that I care about and that I really, really want to put in place is purpose, the freedom to be able to have purpose and give back and to be appreciated for it. And that's not saying you need to be recognized for everything you do, but give yourself the best chance. I tell my grandchildren, give yourself the best chance to be the best that you can be, and know that people need your assistance. You have to help others to move forward in your life. And I think that for me, the purpose and place of freedom to be able to give back is very, very important, to me. And the last part of this I want to say is that, this panel is about celebrating Black philanthropy, but it happens all year long, everything that we do all year long. And, it is about inspiring the next generation. And purpose and passion and presence are the three things that I want that Ruby did. Ruby had purpose, present, and passion.
Yeah, I think it's about really continuing that which was handed down to my generation. To hear my parents talk about when their family had a tough time, how they went next door and may have got a cup of flour in order to make that evening's dinner, in order to make it. And then a few weeks later, that same household that you borrowed from, you had to return the favor to. And so I think it's just coming to understanding that whole African principle of Ubuntu, I am because we are, which is also embedded in Christian faith, that in the early church, they held all things in common, so that no one had any need. And so I think that understanding, whether your religious institution, cultural institution, we have a responsibility to support each other through philanthropy to make sure it continues to work. I would add, well, to answer your second question about what is one thing someone can do, just an example, a Memphis example, when we first came to Memphis, our firstborn, Josiah, was an infant. And so when we got around to his first birthday, he was really blessed. He had everything he needed. And so we all know St. Jude has the birthday challenge. And so we turned his birthday into an opportunity for others in our community and village to sow into something that is purposeful and meaningful and helping to make better the lives of so many children that have had a hard time in life. And we did it also for the point that we can, my wife and I can tell him as he gets older, said, from the time you were an infant and couldn't even walk yourself, you were a philanthropist. And I think the more that we have that intentionality of inviting our children, our nieces and nephews into this work, no matter how small or large the gift is, we'll continue to make sure Black philanthropy goes on for another generation and more.
Thank you, Pastor Turner. Marcellus.
Thank you. So, I mean, we wouldn't have known that collage, that building this new center was possible if we hadn't seen Hattie Lou Theater go up. So seeing Hattie Lou Theater go up let us know that this was possible. And that wouldn't have happened unless the community supported that in the way they did. Many of the folks who are on this webinar today have supported that institution, and that was powerful. I mean, it was representation, and it let me know that the vision that we had was possible. And as I said, cultural institutions are important because they tell the story of a people. Kevin and I weren't the first Black men to come to Memphis and try to teach ballet to kids of color. We weren't. There were several pioneers who came before us who did this work in makeshift studios, in church, in church spaces, in their basements. And when they transitioned, because they didn't have a space, a lot of that legacy, a lot of that history kind of fades into the abyss because it's not captured on the mainstream record. And so these institutions are important. So when we talk about legacy, I'm so proud of the space that we've built that is going to outlive Kevin and I, and that's going to be able to provide a place for training and artistic exploration and development and create powerful youth outcomes. And that's going to help generations beyond us. And that wouldn't have been possible without the support of some of the folks that are on this panel with me. I'm so grateful. And so many people that I've seen on this call today. So it's all about community and really preserving our shared legacy. So just honored to be in this space today and so grateful to be part of this conversation. So.
Thank you, Marcellus. Brooke, you want to close us out with that question?
Sure. I just want to say that there are so many people who inspire me. There are so many Memphians doing the amazing work. Ruby and the Women's Foundation. My husband inspires me because the man probably works 24/7, but serves people passionately and always makes time to mentor or to help someone in need, anyone in need. Daryl Cobbins and 100 Black Men of Memphis, they shadow stereotypes and do incredible, incredible work in the community. Some work that my kids have already benefited from. One of my dearest friends, one of the most exceptional women you'll ever meet, Dr. Christina Rosenthal, she is a saint. She is truly a saint, and she has her Determined to Be a Doctor Someday Foundation. And this woman is a phenomenal wife, mother, practice owner, sister, aunt, friend, yet makes time to mentor, probably at this point, thousands of children. She is sending children to medical school, students, to medical school, dental school, all types of professional schools and grad schools. And I tease her and I tell her, I'm only using you to make my way into heaven. But I mentioned her to say, I'm inspired by so many people. And I hope to inspire other people. And I think it's such a great feeling when you help others. It's an incredible feeling. And I think a lot of times, it was mentioned earlier, people feel that the only way to help is by writing a check, but we all have talents and gifts and skills. And of course, time is your greatest commodity. And just to volunteer your time means so much, especially since that's the one thing that we can't regain, time. You can always make more money. Your time, you can never capture. So everyone, all these people inspire me. I hope to inspire others in closing. I hope to inspire my children. Even my children inspire me, but I hope to inspire them to keep continuing as far as being service-minded and kind and compassionate. And I'm so proud of us as a people. We're a resilient group. And as long as we're able to empower and support each other, I think we can conquer anything, but we have to support each other. We have to empower each other. And we have to advocate for each other. I can't stress that enough. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Brooke. And I don't have to say anything else because Brooke has summed this panel up so very, very well. So let's open it up for questions. Anyone have any questions for this amazing panel? You all, these are some of, well, we have amazing people in this community, but this panelists, I mean, they are amazing. So please take the opportunity to get those questions out.
Linda, as we wait for the questions, I would like to say that, an example of working together, in terms of Black philanthropy, I was reminded as Brooke was speaking about an initiative that the Women's Foundation was able to do to bring, it was said that it could not be done, and thanks to, leaders like, Cassandra Webster, Tawana Scott Mitchell, and so many others, that we were able to bring together the links, the Delta Sigma Theta sorority and the AKA sororities together, and we did a fundraiser, and it was around the time and talent that we pulled it together, but the program focus, each one of these organizations had wonderful service to community, and they wanted to illuminate that and also document how we work together, and also learn how to fundraise. That is an opportunity that we captured as women of color to come together and make this happen. The fundraiser happened with hundreds of volunteers and people coming together, and the net of that went back into the community. That was something that was very special around time, treasures and talent.
Thank you, Ruby. While we're waiting on questions, I'm going to let Marcellus get on a soapbox. Anything happening at Collage that people need to know about?
Thank you. Yes, we are gearing up as long as this pandemic will allow us. We are gearing up for our grand opening, which is September 24th and 25th. So hopefully on the 25th is a large community day. On the 24th is our gala. So hopefully we'll see many of you there to celebrate with us. It's been a very difficult, bittersweet year to build a facility and to do a capital campaign in the middle of a pandemic. We've really been unable to celebrate any of the milestones in traditional ways. No groundbreaking ceremony. We've been unable to have a lot of in-person fundraising events, which are kind of like, the bread and butter of what we do. So this celebration is very important, and hopefully we are able to, we're going to do it, because we can't push it much further. As I joke, the building can't be 5 years old and us try to have a grand opening celebration. That won't work. So we have to do it.
And I'll just remind everyone, if you have questions, please submit your questions using the Q&A. You can find that feature at the bottom of your screen. And I just want to thank our amazing moderator and our awesome panelists. I have a question that I want to ask myself, actually. You all are inspiration to me, and I'm grateful that we're able to have this conversation today. And, you know, people have been engaging in the chat throughout the conversation. And Kathy put in there that you don't have to be filthy rich to give, which is so true. So I don't think we should confine our identities as philanthropists to the dollars that we spend, because if we did that, you know, where would we be as a people today? And I also think that it's important that we don't devalue the gifts that we place out here in our community. And Pastor Turner kind of touched on this, but how important is it for us to highlight peers and each other, other Black people, as examples of givers and philanthropists? How important is that?
You can take it, Pastor Turner. Oh, go ahead, Ruby.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, it's huge to highlight that. I think once we get away from assigning a certain amount that makes you a philanthropist, I think we can break through letting people know that, you know, whatever amount you give, if you're giving towards a purpose, you're trying to help realize a vision, you are a philanthropist. And so I think that's the biggest stigma in the African American community that we need to break through, that you might not be able to write the check for $5,000 or more. But whatever you are given, it sounds awfully churchy for me to say this, but it's your heart, it's your intention. And a whole lot of a little bit can make a whole lot of a difference in making a vision a reality. So I think the more that we begin to tear down that stigma, I think we will be able to recognize the contributions of people, no matter how small or large their gift is.
I think it's in the eye of the beholder as well. There's some real assumptions around, you know, what and how Black philanthropy occurs. And, you know, I think that people would really be surprised. You know, it's not always about the numbers, you know, but would be really surprised at, you know, what is valuated as philanthropy for Black people. And it's much more than I think that the public understand or believe.
And that's true for us here as well at the Community Foundation. That's something that we're doing on our journey as well, evaluating how we engage with Black donors, how we approach them, which is something historically that we haven't done, and something that we have to pay attention to now, because like when you said in your response earlier to, you know, how we continue to spotlight, it's all to do with intentionality. So we have to be very intentional in the ways that we engage with the community.
Thank you, all of you, for your response. We've got one question. You want to say something? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say two quick things. One, you know, bringing up Hattie Lou again, and at Condio, I was always inspired. They used to have a program called their Small But Mighty Donor Program, which was so impressive to me, but really allowed donors to support the organization at a very modest level over, you know, a recurring gift. And so very inspiring. And then the second thing I'll say is that, you know, these gifts are about relationships. You know, every $10,000 gift, every $10,000 gift that we've received today started with a $10 gift, you know, 10 years ago. So it's all about relationships and, you know, and developing those and just finding the value in them. You just never know how that's going to grow. And as the relationship grows, oftentimes, like you taught me, Linda, the support, you know, will grow too.
Thank you for saying that. I just love Marcellus. All right, we've got one question from Dr. Keith Lee. Either one of you can answer it. Memphis is nationally known as a city of impoverished people. What strategies can individuals and groups of modest means develop to financially support Black organizations? Anyone want to take that one?
I think I want to answer it in two ways. One way is we did talk earlier about philanthropy being more than financial. And so there are ways you can serve and offer your talents and your time. The second way I would is to think about, and this goes again to any, where you are economically, supporting organizations that are working to dismantle poverty. those organizations that are advocating for certain kinds of legislation or for a living wage. So, and so it's hard to give from nothing. But if we can help improve the standard of living for them, of course, they will be able to contribute to organizations that are working towards the vision that we want of our community. And so I would say, think about what organizations are doing that work that's helping to improve the economic reality of those who find themselves in poverty. And so Memphis has always been somewhat of an irony. We are, yes, one of the most impoverished cities in the country, but we are one of the most generous.
That is absolutely correct. And I would say show up with your, as I said earlier, your heart, your hand, and your treasures, and stay with it. There's no easy fix to this. So, we have to be in the game all the way. And we have to inspire others with our philanthropy. Brooke is, she gives with her all, with everything. And we all can, share, or most of us on this call somewhere where she's had a connection. And I think that's really, really important. And having ways to give that is not, dollars all the time, but sharing someone's service, referring. We say advocate. And Linda, I'm going to take privilege here to say how wonderful and what a wonderful professional you have been over the years, not only through the work that you've done with organizations, but through just directing people to right resources unselfishly. As you raise money for one, you're saying support the other. And I think that is part of who we are and how we show up. And that's an example that I want to lift up.
Well, thank you, Ruby. I was thanking Marcellus for talking about that relationship piece, that is so important that we maintain relationships with people engaged in. Well, thank you all so much for attending, those who are attending this conversation. Thank you so much to our panelists. I'm going to turn it over to Ariel and let her give us some final goodbye or words of some wise words or whatever. I don't know, Ariel. Turn it over to you.
No, I'll just, again, thank you all for tuning in to this conversation. Thank you again to Linda for moderating. Thank you to all the panelists. I think this is the first step in us having a conversation that's very needed in our community. We need to always celebrate Black people and the way that they show up for their community, the way that they give back. We need to make sure that we're empowering one another. Like Brooke, we're empowering our children and making sure that they are going to continue this legacy for years to come. So again, thank you all for tuning in. This is the first conversation, but definitely not the last. So please be sure to join us for future events. Thank you so much.
Happy Black Philanthropy Month to everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.